Hey everybody, Brian Leslie Fathery here once again with Unbreakable. Thank you for joining us on our YouTube channel here.
Mm-hmm.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and share all that
Yep.
when we're done, or do it in the middle. We don't care. We've been talking about on our podcast and on this
Mm-hmm.
extra content here on YouTube about creating a family of faith. We
Right.
talked to you about making a decision to make a family of faith
Mm-hmm.
and raise a family of faith. We talked to you about partnering with your spouse
Mm-hmm.
in that process. We talked to you about how to implement that with your children.
Yep.
Not every single little detail, but we talked about that some.
Mm-hmm.
Give you some pointers on that. There's more to come. We will talk about that in future broadcasts and future YouTube videos as well. And then the last video we talked about being sure that you put good things in and take the bad
Right.
things out, and
Yeah.
how to do that. And in the process of talking about that, I just kept hearing the words expectations and standard.
Yeah.
And so I want to start with, and Leslie's like, just start and I'll just jump in. So, and she said, this will be great. So hopefully this will be a great video. Um, but I want to talk to you a little bit about um, the expectations that you set for yourself and for your children,
Right.
and the standards you set for yourself and for your children.
Mm-hmm.
So let's start with standards. You've heard us say this before. You're going to hear us say it over and over and over and over and over again until you get it, or we get it, whichever comes first. And it's this: a standard is not something to live up to.
Right.
A standard is something not to fall below. And so when you're setting a standard in your home of behavior, of acceptance, whatever that standard may be, you know, for example, maybe the standard is only 3 hours of screen time
Okay.
in the evening, so you can have family time. And I'm just making a number up. Maybe the standard is every 3 days or every other day we have family meal together. Maybe the standard is, you know,
Maybe the standard is every evening we eat the meal together.
yeah,
We have family dinner. That's
and
our standard.
and we prefer
Yeah.
that.
We
but,
also have a standard of like integrity.
yeah,
So we expect our children. Integrity means that you do the right thing even when someone's not watching.
yeah, and you do what you said you're going to do.
Right. And you say what you do, what you say you're going to do. And so we have a standard of integrity in our house. And the goal is to never drop below that standard.
Yeah.
We always stay at or above that standard.
We have a standard of keeping our promises.
Yeah.
So we don't make a lot of promises, because if we can't keep them, we don't make them.
Mm-hmm.
And then the standard is, if you make the promise and you don't keep the promise for some reason, because things happen, that we have a standard of asking for forgiveness and
Mm-hmm.
forgiving
Yeah.
in our home. And so all those things play in. So, but you need to set your standards high, because the lower you set them, that's where they're going to stay. It's kind of like coming in as a new employer. Well, let's just take a look now at Twitter. Whether you follow for Elon Musk or anti-Elon Musk, I don't care. But he's coming in and he's setting this bar really, really high for the employees that are already there.
Yeah.
And it's causing chaos
Mm-hmm.
in his company,
Mm-hmm.
because they've not had a standard
Right.
set.
Yeah.
And because they could do whatever the heck they wanted to do, say whatever
Right.
the heck they want to say. They were fact checking you and me, but they weren't fact checking themselves.
Right.
And so now he's coming and said, no, that's not going to fly. We're going to do this evenly across the board.
Mm-hmm.
And they're rebelling. I saw a report this morning that said that potentially up to 75% of all the employees of Twitter are looking to leave. It's crazy. Huge company. It's thousands and thousands of employees. But I'm going to say right now, Musk doesn't care if they leave.
Well,
And here's what, hang on. And let me
go
cut you
ahead.
off.
It's all right. Go ahead.
The reason he doesn't care is because he's trying to set a standard
Right.
in his company that he wants held to a certain spot.
Right.
And if they're not willing to go there,
Yeah.
then he's willing for them to be cleaned out,
Mm-hmm.
so he can bring people in who will understand the standard that he has said, this is my standard.
Mm-hmm.
This is what I expect you to do as an employee
Right.
of this corporation. Is it right or wrong? That's up to you to argue. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. What I'm saying is he's coming in and resetting a standard, which is
Right.
really difficult to do
Right.
when a culture has already been set.
Yes.
And that culture could be your family. That
Right.
culture could be your church.
Right.
That culture could be your relationship.
Yes.
That culture could be anything. But But when the standard's already been set low,
Mm-hmm.
and you come in to raise it, you're going to have resistance.
Yeah.
And so if you're listening to us and we're talking about setting your standards
Mm-hmm.
high, and you already have children that are, preteen, teen, and you start setting a higher standard in your life, you're going to have some resistance.
I'm thinking of like if you're a family that's new to the Lord.
Right.
Maybe you already have had a family for a while, and now you have come into being a Christian,
Yeah.
and so you want to make some changes in your life, but your children have been raised not with those same standards.
Yeah.
So you will have to work on getting that standard up and teaching them how to live at that standard or above,
Right.
because it's not
Right.
an easy thing at that point.
Right.
Doable, but not
Yeah.
easy, maybe.
Yeah. It's kind of like watching sports. I'm a sports guy. I'm a baseball and football guy, and I'm more college than anything else. But I love watching that. And so you watch, even high school. There's a friend of mine. He's a coach at a high school locally, in the area here. And he's not the head coach, but he's one of the coaches. And the head coach came in, and that team had not been. This recording is in 2022, and that particular high school team had not had a winning season. Well, that's not true. They hadn't had a playoff winning season since 1985.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Now, they've had other teams, other sports, that have done well and have gone to playoffs and done those things. But their football team hadn't for almost 40 years. And he came into a team, he said there were no T-shirts for the football team. There was no attitude about the football team. They were just, they're there. And parents and the band came, and that's really about it. The community didn't support them because they weren't winning.
Right.
And so he was taking a culture that had set a standard for mediocrity. They weren't losers, but they were mediocre. They were maybe average, slightly above average.
Yeah.
That's really where they were at. Competitive, but no one really expected them. No one had a standard for them to do. And he set his standard high. Well, guess what happened? This year they went to the playoffs.
Yeah.
They got all the way to the quarterfinals of the state playoffs. And then they lost to a team that's one of the top ranked teams in the state. Even then, they were upset because they came to the game with a standard and an expectation
Of winning.
to win.
Yeah.
And that's where standards and expectations come in. You set the standard, you set the bar high, and there's work that's involved in that. Those kids worked their tails off. They had to practice harder. They had to do more. They had to learn things. So same thing with your family. If you're setting a standard, and like Leslie said, you weren't Christians, but now you are, and now there's a new standard in your home, you're going to have to work together to set the standard, and then work together to stay above the floor of that standard.
Yeah.
Well, that takes me to expectations. Expectations are the twin, if you were, of standards.
Yes.
Because I set a standard, and then I expect to stay there.
Right.
And above.
Right.
Like this coach, he set a standard. This is what we're going to do, and now they're going to expect this team to be a playoff team from now on. Right. They made it to the playoffs this year. So they're going to expect these kids to make it next year and maybe go a little further.
Yeah.
Maybe just go a little bit more deeper into the playoffs next year. I don't know what's going to happen. It's a year away.
Yeah.
Well, you'll have to see. But the expectation has been set alongside the standard.
Right.
The standard was winning. The standard was hard work. The standard was this effort had to be made.
Right.
The expectation was it would pay off in victories. And the expectation was we would advance and become one of the best teams in the state.
Yeah.
Same thing with your family. You set the expectation with the standard that you set.
Right.
So I expected my children, we talked about this before, to obey me the first time with a smile.
Right.
That was my expectation. It was a standard that I set, and I expected that behavior.
Right.
I didn't excuse it when it didn't occur. I expected the right behavior to go with the standard.
Right.
And so when you set the expectation with the standard in mind, then what you're putting in your child is, oh, mom and dad expect me to do this.
Right. Yes.
They expect me to eat my whole meal without complaining. They expect me to make my bed in the morning. They expect me to brush my teeth at night or after each meal or whatever your
standard is.
whatever you have it set at.
Yeah.
But you set that standard, and with it comes an expectation. So I expect you to get your homework done when you come home from school, Or if you're homeschool, I expect you to do all your work before we go on to do anything playful and fun. There's an expectation that comes with the standard, right? And so, and then you hold them to it.
Yeah.
And you hold yourself to it.
Yep.
Because it's really easy in the long run to get slack.
Yep.
And get lazy. Or it's not even lazy, it's just getting slack. Because you've worked so hard for so long. It's like, man, I just need a break. And you probably do. You probably do. But you can't afford a break. You can't afford that break. Doesn't mean you can't rest. Doesn't mean you can't take vacation time. And that's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is you have to be constantly diligent to raise a family of faith. Right. There's no break in that.
Right.
It's constant.
Right.
Because the enemy is not taking a break. The world is not taking a break. The culture is not taking a break. They are coming after your child. They're coming after your family. They're coming after you every moment of the day. Don't believe me? Just turn on the TV. Go on to Facebook.
Yep.
Go on to Instagram.
Yep.
Go on to TikTok. Don't.
Just don't.
But go on to any of those social media platforms and look at what they're saying. Look at what they're doing. Look at how it's affecting everything. And because they have a long-term marathon mindset, they have a standard that they're trying to set that's much lower, in my opinion, than our standard. But they're trying to bring you to their standard with their expectations.
So in keeping with setting expectations and standards and building our family, and we talked about, what you put in, okay, so our standard when we turn on the television, or our standard when we turn on to social media is different than most people. I don't have people on my Facebook that I'm seeing their stuff all the time, that they're putting vile things up there, that they have complaining all the time. I'm very careful about who I'm letting be seen on a feed if I'm watching a feed, because I don't want things to even be popping up at me.
Right.
When we turn on a television, if we do that, which is kind of rare anymore, but if you turn on a television, it's usually on a ball game because of him, or it's on a show that we have already vetted out, know that it's safe. We are very careful. If we watch a movie, we kind of know what kind of language might be in it or whatever. Are we on a channel that's going to bleep that out? Are we not? Right. We kind of have to watch it. And if the words start flying, then we're like, nope, this channel doesn't bleep. So we turn off. That's the expectation there, is that if something bad does come up, we know that we will be turning that off. We don't keep it and go, oh, well, 1 doesn't hurt, or 2 won't hurt, or pretty soon it's 15 words didn't hurt. It's okay. No, you don't let it go. You have to have a standard and an expectation that when this happens, we're not staying there. We are moving on. I don't know. That just kind of came up. But...
No, it's good.
Yeah.
And so the standard expectation is there, and you have to, and double standards don't work. Do what I say, not what I do doesn't work.
No, you have to walk it out.
I always talk about, I love my parents. My mom and dad were amazing. My dad and I were really, really close, but my dad had a double standard. He made you go to church, but he didn't go. Yeah. You're going to go with your mom. And what happened was, when each of the children, and I'm one of them as well, there's 6 of us, when we hit mid-teens, 13 to 15, 13 to 16, that each of us started saying, well, Dad doesn't go, I'm not going either. Yeah. Right? To Mom's credit, she didn't let me get by with that. No. She let others get by with it, but she didn't let me get by with it. She's like, there's something different about you, boy, and you're going to go whether you like it or not. And she was not wrong. Yeah. She was not wrong. And so I went. And but I didn't like it for a couple of years because, Dad wasn't going. Dad isn't going. Why should I go? Yeah. And so the standard he set for himself was not the standard he set for me, which is a double standard. Yeah. And that doesn't work. And your children know it immediately if you have a double standard. Yep. I mean,
our children still point it out if we have
a sure. Double standard. I'll say or do something, and my children are like, well, that's a double standard. So, well, that's my option. I'm the dad. It's really not. But I still play it up and have. It's more fun at this point because they're adults. But they will call you out on your double standard, and as they should. And so you cannot, well, you can't smoke. You shouldn't smoke. You shouldn't be doing drugs. Yeah. Whatever. You shouldn't drink because you're half drunk. all those things.
They're watching what you watch.
Yeah.
They're watching what you listen to.
Yeah.
They're watching what you are putting into your person.
Absolutely.
And they're saying, well, why can't I do it? If they do it,
right.
Why can't I do it? So it's really important that you have a standard, you stick by the standard, and then you teach them to stick by the standard. Standards are something in our life that we've had for a really long time. The way we do things, the way we expect things from our children, we've had for a long time. I homeschooled our kids for 26 years.
Yeah.
And we've graduated them all now. Yay.
Not each child 26 years, just over a period.
Totally. It took me 26 years to get them all educated. But I will say that the last one, she was harder to stick to doing it all the way to the end. Because it was like, there's only one left. She's almost done. Why do I have to keep doing it to excellence? To the standard that we had set. But it was because we had a standard of excellence. She deserved it. Yeah, and she deserved it. Just because she was the end didn't mean that she didn't deserve the excellence of an education that we were giving her. So, you had to stick to the standard and to the expectation all the way to the end. Yeah. And then I hope that they have learned stick to the standard all the way to the end. And we hope you'll learn stick to the standard all the way to the end, whatever it may be. It's like some people come in and they start a job, and they come in guns blazing. They're amazing, and they set a standard for themselves. And they work extra hours, and they do all these extra things. And everybody in the company is like, they're amazing. But 2 years, 3 years in, they get lazy, and they're just coming in putting in their time. Mm-hmm. And they're not making the extra effort that they once made. Or they succumb to what others are doing. Absolutely. And how others are doing. Right. Maybe there's a bad culture. Mm-hmm. It's a toxic culture in that business. And they begin to act like everybody else around them instead of staying to the standard they set for themselves. Mm-hmm. I've done that in places I've worked where I have a high standard for work ethic that I have for me. And then it's really easy to not do it. Listen to the complaining, the nagging, the disrespect, dishonor of those that are above you. It's really easy to succumb to that culture and do that. And sometimes, you're a suck up, you're a blah, 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 you're this or you're that, because you're working hard and you're working harder than other people are. I can't control what other people do. I can't control what they're paid. Mm-hmm. I can't control whether they make more money than me and make less effort than me. Mm-hmm. I can only control me. I'll give you two stories from the same place I worked at about 20, 25 years ago now. One time we were just super busy, and I was training a guy. I was on inside sales, and so I was on a headset handling sales calls most of the time, but twice a week they would have us go into, we had a calendar where we do retail sales. And I was training the new employee to do the retail sales. And it was super busy. And people were complaining that the clientele we had was rough. Mm-hmm. They were challenging. And they were saying and doing things that, that are unacceptable. But you just ignore them and keep doing your work. And it was about a 3-hour period where we were just working nonstop. We got done, and we got to take a break. We're in the break room, and this person looked at me and goes, "How did you just do that?" I go, "What?" He goes, "Everybody's doing this and this, and you just kept cool, kept calm." I said, "Well, I can't control them. I can't control what they say. I can't control how their day was going before they came in. Mm-hmm. I can't control how they respond to me. The only thing I can control is me, my own emotion, my own efforts, my own ability to help them. Right. I can only control me. I can't control you. I can't control them. I can only control me." Right. I had to set a standard for myself that I will control my emotions. I will be kind. I will be nice, and I will do the job hard, work it with my best effort, and make sure that client is taken care of. Mm-hmm. And that's all I can do. So that's a standard expectation that I set for myself for work, my work ethic. The second one is I took the same job. I took the job, but I had to work in a warehouse before I took the actual sales part, like some training. But I was being paid more than the guys in the warehouse. And I had like 4 or 5, 6 guys that came in that somehow that word got to them. It wasn't from me. It had to be from my employer, that I was being paid more than they were being paid. Yeah. And so they were going, "I heard that you're making more money than me." He said, "I have no idea. I don't know how much you make. Don't really care. All I care about is what I'm making, not what you make." Mm-hmm. And they're like, "Well, ain't fair." I said,
There's an account in the Bible, it's one of my favorite accounts, and there's this guy, he owned this land, it was harvest time, he hires a crew. Said he hires a crew, they're working for a while, he realizes he needs more workers, so he hires a second crew. And they're still out there working, and he realizes I need even more work. So he hired a third crew. And they finish the harvest, they get it all done, and he starts paying them, but he pays the third crew first. Didn't have to do it that way. He could have paid the first crew first, but no. He was transparent, he was honest. He paid the third crew first. Then he paid the second crew. Then he paid the first crew. And guess what? He paid them all the same amount of money. Oh my word, the complaining that came from crew number 1 and crew number 2, because crew number 3 didn't spend as much time. They did the same work, but they weren't there as long. How's come you paid them more? They made more than me, because all the whining, you can hear it, right? It's unfair, equal pay for equal time. I mean, all that kind of stuff. And the owner of the property said, "Did you not agree to your wage?" So, well, yeah. You could have asked for more, and I probably would have paid it, but you didn't ask. So that's why I tell the guys I work with, it's like, you can ask for more. I can't fix that for you. So if you're making less than me, it's not my fault. It's your fault. And if you're making more than me, it's not my fault or your fault. It's my fault. I didn't ask for more money. And so it's setting expectation. It's having a standard. And I expected to be paid for the work I did. And it's really easy, but over time, I could have just jumped into complaining. I could have fed right into that. So, well, how much you make? Whoa, I made it. You make what? I don't make that. I mean, I could have fed into all that. And long term, you have to continually remind yourself, this is my standard. And this is the expectation I have for my own behavior. Because if I don't, I'm poking me, if I don't stay to my standard, if I don't keep my own expectation, how can I expect my children to go to the standard I set for them? How can I expect them to have the behavior that I'm expecting from them if I myself will not do what I'm expecting of them?
Because marriage and your Christian walk and being a family is a marathon. It's not just a sprint.
Wow. I've heard that on a couple of videos now. Have you? You should have.
It's a marathon.
It's a marathon. That should be like the name of our ministry, Marriage Marathon. But because it is. It's a marathon, and it takes special training. It takes special effort. And it takes special work to finish a marathon. So we want you to finish. That's why we're giving these videos out. That's why we're talking to you. That's why we're encouraging you, because we want you to be successful in raising a family of faith. Can't talk. In a family of faith. We don't want you to fail. We want you to be successful. We're here for you. We pray for you. We believe that God has a purpose for you as parents. We believe that God has a purpose for your family and a purpose for your children, both individually and collectively. And you may not know the full purpose until later, but you need to start pursuing it and having it. And if you don't do some of these things, you're never going to know it. And you have to be utterly focused on the standards and expectations that you have for your family. Anything else?
Nope. Sounds good.
All right. That's a little bit shorter video. Gives me more time to talk. No, I'm just cheating. Thank you for being with us. Appreciate you watching the content that we leave for you on YouTube. Be sure to go listen to our podcast at podpoint.com. Look up Unbreakable, and you'll find us. You can put Unbreakable in our name. So go check that out. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share these videos with people that you think need this, or you just think will be entertained by how silly I am. All those things. Please do that and be helpful to us, and let us know. Make some comments. Share with us what you're thinking about these videos. If you have other topics you'd like us to share, let us know. We'd like to know that. We're just going to keep pouring out there. We're still going to keep giving to you. So once again, thank you for your time. Thank you for being a part of the Unbreakable community, and join the mission. Would you join the mission and help us help families become unbreakable? All right. With that said, we love you. We're praying for you, and we'll talk to you soon. All right. Bye for now.